Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked someone in the eyes and wondered what they're capable of? Not in a dramatic way. I mean, truly wondered, what would this person do if nothing held them back? I've covered some grim stories before, but this one, I kept pausing, rereading, questioning whether I really wanted to say the next sentence out loud. Because what happened in this case didn't just blur the line between sanity and savagery, it crushed it. It's not just that a man lost his life. It's how and what she did after. This wasn't heat of the moment rage. It was a ritual, planned, executed, served, and the most chilling part, people saw it coming. Before we get into the most disturbing part of this case, take a second to subscribe. What you're about to hear, you won't forget. To understand Katherine Knight, you have to go back, not to the night it happened, but way before. She was born in 1955 in a town called Tenterfield, New South Wales. But don't let the calm-sounding name fool you. Her childhood wasn't peaceful. Katherine's mother, Barbara, had left her husband for his co-worker, Katherine's father, Ken Knight. The scandal followed them like a shadow, and so did the violence. Ken was an alcoholic, controlling and violent. He didn't just hurt Katherine's mother. He did it in front of the kids, regularly. As a child, Katherine would watch wide-eyed as arguments turned into assaults. But what haunted her most wasn't the bruises. It was the stories. Her mother used to tell her, in graphic detail, about the things men did to women. And worse, she told Katherine to put up with it. Abuse wasn't just something she witnessed. It was something she was taught to expect. And when people later asked why no one stepped in, why no one stopped the cycle, the truth is, no one really knew what was happening behind those walls. Or maybe they did and looked away. School wasn't much better. Katherine struggled, couldn't read or write, and was known for flying into uncontrollable rages. By the time she was a teenager, most kids gave her space. Not out of kindness, but fear. Still, if you ask some people back then, they'd describe her as quiet. Shy even, but it was the kind of quiet that made people nervous. The kind that made teachers whisper about her behind. At 16, she dropped out and took a job at the local abattoir, the slaughterhouse. And this is where something shifted. Most people would be disturbed on their first day, watching animals get stunned, hung, and gutted. Katherine, she took to it, fast. They gave her her own set of knives, which she kept hanging above her bed, not in a drawer, not in a locker, above her bed. Some people say the trauma made her. Others say she was always this way. The truth probably sits somewhere in the middle. Katherine didn't just collect knives. She collected grudges. And when she got into relationships, they didn't start bad, but they always ended in chaos. With one man, she slit the throat of his puppy to show him what she'd do if he ever left her. With another, she fractured his skull with an iron while he was sleeping. Police were called. Hospital trips were made. But somehow she kept slipping through. Either they didn't press charges, or she convinced them to stay. And maybe that's the most dangerous part. Not the rage, but the calm in between when she seemed normal. Because Katherine Knight wasn't always a storm. Sometimes she was a silence right before it. By the time Katherine met John Price, she wasn't hiding who she was anymore. She was already a mother, already had a history, and not the kind people whispered about, the kind that came with scars and restraining orders. But John, he knew all of that, and he still let her in. Pricey, that's what everyone called him, was a father of three, worked in the local mines, had a good reputation. Friends said he was the kind of guy who'd help you move house without being asked. He didn't need Katherine, but maybe a part of him wanted to fix her. Or maybe he just didn't see it yet. At first, things were good. She'd cook, clean, dote on his kids. For a while, it seemed like maybe, just maybe, she'd settle down. But patterns don't break because we want them to. They break because we fight them. And Katherine wasn't fighting hers. The argument started small. Accusations, jealousy, Mood swings that flipped without warning. Then came the threats, the screaming, the knives. One night, she stabbed him, straight in the chest. During an argument, not enough to kill, just enough to mark him. He didn't leave then. He bandaged it, said she'd snapped, said it wouldn't happen again. But it did. Katherine didn't just want to be in control. She wanted ownership. If he joked with a co-worker, she accused him of cheating. If he stayed out late, she trashed his things. And when she found out he wouldn't marry her, she filmed items he'd stolen from work years earlier, just old first aid kits, thrown out and forgotten, and sent the footage to his boss. That was the final straw. He kicked her out. You'd think the story ends there. You wanted to. For a few weeks, it looked like he'd done it. He was happier. Friends said his smile came back. He spent time with his kids, got back into his routine. Katherine still hovered, tried to win him back, showed up uninvited, left notes, but he stayed away. Even the police were involved by this point. He'd told them, "If she ever comes back, she'll kill me." Those were his words. And yet, February 29th, 2000, a leap year, an extra day that for most people meant nothing. For John Price, it was the end of everything. That morning, he went to work as usual. Nothing seemed off, not outwardly. He laughed with coworkers, made small talk, but before leaving, he said something no one could forget. "If I don't show up tomorrow, it's because Katherine killed me." He wasn't joking. He wasn't being dramatic. He meant it. That night, John came home. Katherine showed up later, and here's the hard truth. He let her in. She didn't force her way, didn't sneak through a window. She walked through the front door because he opened it. They ate together. They had sex. And then John fell asleep, fully clothed, lying on his own bed. Katherine stayed awake. She walked quietly to the kitchen, took out a large butcher knife, and sometime after midnight, she returned to the bedroom. She stabbed him once, then again, 37 times. Front, back, chest, limbs. Some strikes were deep enough to cut through bone. But John didn't die right away. Blood evidence showed he woke up, tried to fight her off. He stumbled out of bed, made it to the hallway, bleeding heavily. He even reached the front door, tried to escape, but his body gave out just feet away. He died there, alone on the floor. Katherine dragged him back inside. And what happened next? You're going to remember this part, whether you want to or not. If you're still with me, take a moment to hit the like button. This story only gets darker, and your support helps these stories reach the people who need to hear them. Because now, this is where it stops being just a murder. This is where it becomes something else. Katherine left the house briefly, used John's ATM card to withdraw $1,000. Then she came back. She took that same knife, and she skinned him, the entire body. One clean, continuous piece, like something out of a slaughterhouse. She hung his skin on a meat hook in the living room, like a trophy, like it meant something. Then she decapitated him. She cooked parts of his body, meat from his buttocks, with vegetables and gravy. Authorities later found 2 full plates on the table. Beside each is a name card. They were for his children. Yes, she planned to feed his body to his own kids. Then she took sleeping pills, laid down, and waited. When John didn't show up to work that morning, no one shrugged it off. He wasn't the kind of man to ghost people. He didn't call in sick, didn't take unplanned days off. He was reliable, consistent to the hour. So when his car was still parked in the driveway, and no one was answering the front door, his co-workers didn't wait. They called the police. 2 officers arrived at the house in Aberdeen. What they walked into would follow them for the rest of their lives. Even the most seasoned officers couldn't believe what they were seeing. The front hallway was streaked in blood. Walls, floor, doorframe. It told a story. A man fighting for his life, room by room. Then came the body. John Price's remains were found sprawled on the lounge floor. But it wasn't just the death that shocked them. It was what she did after. One officer turned his head and left the room. Another stood silent, unmoving, for nearly a minute. Some officers who saw that scene never returned to active duty. One needed trauma leave. They were trained for violence. But this was ritualistic. Katherine had left the skin fully intact, hanging from a meat hook in the archway, his head boiled and placed in a pot on the stove. On the table, 2 plates, cooked meat, roasted pumpkin, zucchini, and baked potato neatly arranged. Each place setting had a name card. They were the names of John's children. It was a staged family dinner, set out like she expected them to come home, sit down and eat. In the kitchen, they found a 3rd plate, thrown outside, half-eaten or half-rejected. That might have been hers. It wasn't just about killing him. It was about humiliation, control, making him into something else, even in death. Katherine was found in the bedroom, unconscious but alive. She'd taken a mix of pills, some prescription, some over-the-counter. No suicide note, no explanation. But the house said everything. When the details finally came to court, the room wasn't silent. It was still, like no one wanted to breathe too loud in the presence of what had been done. Katherine Knight didn't deny what happened. At first, she entered a not guilty plea, forcing the court to prepare for a trial no one wanted to sit through. But just before it began, she changed it to guilty. There was no official explanation. She gave no statement. She offered no apology. Psychological assessments followed. Experts evaluated her mental state, trying to determine if this was a work of psychosis or pure intent. They found her sane, cold, calculated, but mentally competent. The judge described her actions as appalling in the extreme, so far beyond the scope of ordinary crime, they defied classification. Then came the sentence. Life in prison. No possibility of parole. No appeals. No petitions. Katherine Knight became the first woman in Australian history to receive that sentence, never to be released. The court even issued a rare judicial order. Her file was to be marked permanently, never to be freed. Not because of vengeance, but because, as the judge put it, there is no risk worth taking. She now resides in Silverwater Women's Correctional Center, still alive, still unrepentant. And even now, there are officers who say her name feels like a weight in their throat, like something that doesn't leave you even after the trial ends. It's easy to label her a monster, but some say monsters are made, not born. Katherine Knight didn't just wake up one day with a knife in her hand. She was built layer by layer from a childhood soaked in dysfunction. She grew up in a household where violence wasn't just common, it was currency. Her mother, Barbara, often spoke graphically about sex and abuse. Her father, Ken, was an alcoholic who regularly assaulted her mother, and sometimes the kids. Those who knew Katherine as a child said she was quiet, withdrawn, but there were cracks, even then, explosive outbursts, cruelty toward classmates, unpredictable mood swings that turned from sweet to savage without warning. As an adult, she bounced between partners, most of them abused or terrified. She stabbed one, tried to suffocate another, and always there was this strange, compulsive control. Love for her wasn't affection, it was ownership. So the question remains, was she born without empathy? Or was it beaten, burned, and torn out of her over time? Psychologists who examined her described a rare blend of disorders, borderline personality disorder, and signs of antisocial traits. But none could agree fully. Some saw delusions, others saw calculation. What's terrifying is both might be true. She wasn't insane in the legal sense, but she wasn't sane either, not by any human standard. Her case forced Australia to take a harder look at domestic violence, at how often it's ignored when the victim is male, at how long abuse can simmer behind closed doors before it erupts. John Price did everything he could, reported her, warned his friends, told the police, and he still paid the price. Today, his story is taught in criminal psychology classes, and Katherine's name is still spoken like a warning. It's easy to look at a case like this and see only the horror, but what makes it truly terrifying is how ordinary it began. a relationship, a home, a second chance, until love, obsession, and untreated trauma collided and left a trail no one can forget. If this story made you feel something, share it, because someone you know might be in a situation that looks harmless until it's too late. And if you want more stories that peel back the layers of humanity's darkest moments, subscribe. We don't just tell stories here. We remember the ones that should never be forgotten.